The desert breathes before the dawn. A soft wind moves over the dunes, shaping them like waves in an ocean of gold. The air is cool, the horizon pale with the promise of sun. You stand where the sand meets the river, a ribbon of silver running through the silence, and in that stillness, the world feels endless, ancient, waiting to wake. When the first light breaks, it does not rush, it spreads like thought, slow and certain. The dunes begin to glow, the stones shimmer with warmth, and the faint outline of towers appears far away, as if drawn from the very breath of the earth. The city, unnamed and eternal, rises out of the mirage, walls that catch the sunlight like mirrors, temples shaped for the sky. This was the hour, they said, when the kings first opened their eyes to the world. The kings who believed that the sun itself chose them, not to rule men, but to command time. Their crowns glimmered not with jewels but with the reflection of dawn. To them, the day was not a gift but a covenant, every sunrise a promise that their name would live as long as the light returned. You feel that same stillness now, that sacred hush before the world begins again. The desert holds its breath, the river gleams like glass, and somewhere far off, a single horn sounds, soft as memory. The sound rolls over the sands, calling not to armies or worshippers, but to the earth itself, as though awakening it from sleep. There are no battles here, no cries of command, only the slow unfolding of light, the birth of purpose. Humanity's oldest dream stirs beneath the rising sun, the dream of permanence, of leaving a mark upon the shifting sands. And yet, beneath that grandeur, there lingers a whisper, a truth the kings themselves could never silence. All things that rise in light must someday return to shadow. But for now, the morning belongs to them. The world glows, and in its glow, you feel both the awe of creation and the quiet ache of time. The city wakes beneath the sun as if it too were alive. From afar it gleams like a mirage made solid, its walls rising out of the desert like the edge of a dream. Gold panels catch the morning light, sending long ribbons of brightness across the river. The towers stand tall and silent at first, then slowly begin to shimmer as the day unfolds, each one a finger reaching toward the heavens that bless them. Within those walls, the streets begin to stir. The first sound is not of shouting or command, but of rhythm, hammers striking stone, chisels whispering across marble, wheels creaking in time with prayer. The city hums with creation. Its heartbeat is made of thousands of hands working as one, each movement an act of devotion. From the highest terrace to the narrowest lane, everything breathes in harmony, as if the air itself bends in worship. The sacred river winds through its heart, carrying both reflection and life. Its waters mirror the color of the sky, and in its reflection the city seems twice born, one half of stone, the other of light. Along its banks bloom gardens that never sleep, hanging vines heavy with fruit, flowers trained to climb the walls of temples, the scent of date and myrrh drifting through the courtyards. Doves rise from the gardens, their wings flashing silver as they circle the towers before vanishing into the sun's blaze. In the center of this splendor stands the palace, not merely a home, but a horizon. Its domes gleam like captured suns, its steps carved from the same white marble that built the temples. And there, where light falls most perfectly, stands the king. He is still, his robes soft with woven gold, his eyes fixed on the rising disk above the city. The people call him chosen of the sun, and to look upon him is to feel both reverence and calm. He is less a man than a symbol, the reflection of light made flesh. To his subjects, he is the bridge between heaven and earth, to himself, merely the keeper of an endless promise. When he raises his hand, the city seems to pause. The merchants lower their voices, the guards still their steps, even the river seems to move more gently. His gesture is not command but communion, a quiet acknowledgement that all this beauty, all this order, exists not to glorify him, but to mirror the harmony of the sky. And for a time, it works. The air glows, the towers sing, and the people move as though within a single, sacred breath. Pride and peace walk hand in hand through the city of splendor, and the world, for this brief, golden moment, seems exactly as it was meant to be. Beneath the vast and cloudless sky, the city continues to grow, not with noise or haste, but with rhythm, steady and sacred. The sun hangs high, a golden eye watching over thousands of laborers spread across the plains and courtyards. Their movements are slow but endless, like waves rolling against the shore of time. The sound of their tools fills the air, hammers striking stone, mallets meeting bronze, chisels whispering across the faces of statues not yet born. Each strike rings clear, echoing against the cliffs and walls, a heartbeat of creation. Dust glows in the sunlight, turning every worker into a silhouette of light and shadow. The heat burns, but no one curses it. To them, it is the touch of the divine, the same fire that gave life to their king, to the empire, to the world itself. Men climb scaffolds high above the ground, women carry baskets of clay and water, children run with tools too large for their hands. The rhythm never falters. It is as though the city itself is breathing through them. Amid this living hum walks the architect, robes of pale linen tied close, eyes narrowed in thought. He speaks softly to his apprentices, tracing invisible lines in the air. To him, stone is not dead matter but captured will, each block a prayer shaped by the hands that lift it. He designs temples where the sun will fall exactly through the columns at dawn, illuminating altars carved with symbols of eternity. When asked what guides his hand, he simply says, "The light teaches me." Beside him rides the general, his armor glinting like molten bronze. He does not command armies today, only order, ensuring the workers are fed, the rhythm unbroken. His voice carries across the quarries, deep and measured, like the steady beat of a drum. He knows that every empire is built first by discipline, then by faith. Watching the endless motion of the workers, even he feels small, not diminished, but humbled, as if he too is a tool in the hands of something greater. The sun climbs higher, the air thick with dust and prayer. Sweat runs down faces, sand gathers in folds of cloth, and yet the work does not cease. In the glare of noon, the stones begin to shine, their surfaces so polished they reflect the workers themselves, thousands of tiny faces carved into the making of eternity. By twilight, the sound of hammers softens, the last strokes falling slow and sure. A silence follows, deep, respectful, like a held breath. The workers rest beside their unfinished walls, their shadows long against the fire-colored sand. They look up at the rising stars, each one sharp as a shard of the divine, and for a moment, they see what they have built reflected in the heavens above. The architect smiles faintly. The general nods once. In the fading light, the half-built temples gleam as if already complete, their pillars glowing, their doorways open to a sky that feels infinite. The workers close their eyes and sleep where they sit, their hands still dusted with the powder of stone. For they are not merely building walls. They are shaping time itself, their labor the pulse that keeps the empire alive. And though none of their names will be remembered, their silence will outlast the songs of kings. Night descends like a velvet shroud, covering the city in deep, whispering blue. The day's brilliance fades into shadow, and only the highest domes of the palace catch the last red glow of the dying sun. The people sleep, but at the heart of the city, light still burns, a single flame inside the temple of stars. Within its walls, darkness is not absence but presence, thick, alive, and humming. The air smells of oil and myrrh. Hundreds of lamps hang from golden chains, their flames trembling in rhythm with the wind that slips through hidden vents in the stone. Above, the ceiling is a map of the heavens, a black dome inlaid with silver and pearl, each star placed by hands long vanished. Here waits the oracle, neither young nor old, neither woman nor man, but something that has endured the ages like the stones themselves. Their face is veiled in silk, their hands streaked with ash and light. They move slowly, as if each motion belongs to time itself. Smoke from the braziers curls around them in thin silver threads, shaping symbols that flicker and vanish as quickly as they form. Footsteps echo, soft, deliberate. The king enters alone, his golden cloak brushing the marble floor, the sound like sand moving in the dark. He bows his head slightly, though whether in reverence or habit is unclear. For a long while, he says nothing. The silence stretches until it feels almost holy. Then, the oracle speaks, voice calm, low, as if spoken by the temple itself. When the sun bows, your name will fade. The words float through the smoke, heavy yet soundless, sinking into the air. The king lifts his gaze, his eyes reflecting the small flames like shards of dawn. He does not ask what it means, he already knows. All kings have heard such words before. Yet still, he smiles. The sun does not bow, he replies softly. It rises by my command. The oracle tilts their head, the veiled face unreadable. Even the sun obeys a higher circle, they whisper. The light that crowns you will one day kneel to its own shadow. All that burns must rest. The king steps closer, close enough that the gold on his robe catches the lamp's light, turning him into a living flame. I have built what no shadow can touch, he says, voice calm but firm. The people sing my name with each dawn. The rivers move at my word. The stones themselves bear my mark. The oracle's voice grows quieter, as if receding into the walls. Then remember this, the mark upon the stone is not the stone itself. A faint sound rises, not quite music, not quite wind. The lamps flicker. For a moment, the painted stars above seem to shift, as if the heavens themselves have turned to listen. The king feels the weight of the silence pressing against him, a silence too vast to command. Yet he does not yield. He bows his head once, a gesture of respect rather than belief, and turns to leave. As his footsteps fade, the oracle lifts one trembling hand toward the ceiling. The smoke twists, forming for an instant the image of the sun being swallowed by shadow. Then it dissolves. The temple grows still again. The lamps burn low. Outside, the wind stirs the banners atop the palace towers. The king steps into the night, the echo of prophecy trailing him like a faint scent of ash. And far above, the stars keep their silent watch, cold, eternal, and unmoved. The morning begins not with quiet but with rhythm. Across the plains, the steady pulse of drums rolls like distant thunder, deep and measured, a heartbeat for the empire itself. Dust rises from the roads in golden clouds as the king's army gathers, an ocean of men and metal beneath the widening sky. Armor gleams like mirrors in the sunlight, banners sway in the wind, and the air hums with the mingled scent of oil, leather, and incense. At the city gates, the people have assembled, thousands standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces uplifted, eyes full of devotion. Women scatter petals into the path, children wave palm branches, old men kneel with hands pressed to the earth. The sacred river runs nearby, its surface trembling with reflected light, as though the water itself bows to the procession. The king rides at the center, his armor chased with symbols of the sun, his horse draped in silk dyed the color of flame. The general rides beside him, helm low, gaze forward, silent as stone. Neither speaks. They need no words. The air itself moves in time with their breath, every sound, every step part of a single, great ceremony. Behind them stretches the army, lines that disappear into the shimmer of distance. Spears catch the light and flash in slow rhythm, like waves breaking on an invisible shore. The heat wavers, bending the horizon into mirage, towers appear and vanish, rivers twist through sand that has never known water. The drums continue, steady and patient, their echo merging with the whisper of the wind. The people watch in awe. Some shout blessings, others weep softly, overcome by the sight. To them, this march is more than conquest, it is divine order set in motion, the will of heaven made visible. As the army passes, priests burn incense along the road, their smoke rising in thin blue lines that mingle with the dust. The wind spreads it over the soldiers, a drifting veil of fragrance and prayer. As the sun climbs higher, the light becomes almost unbearable. The armor glows white, the sand burns beneath their feet, and the horizon blurs into gold. Yet still they march, step after step, a living pattern written upon the earth. The rhythm deepens, boots, drums, breath, wind, until sound becomes pulse, and pulse becomes trance. The king lifts his hand once toward the sun, not in plea but in promise. His shadow stretches long before him, joining the shadows of his army until the desert itself seems covered in the empire's reflection. In that moment, the world feels perfectly balanced, purpose without doubt, power without hesitation. The desert wind sings through the banners, the drums slow to a heartbeat's pace, and the narrator's voice falls to a whisper. Ambition moves beneath the illusion of light, and the march of men becomes the march of time. The army disappears into the horizon, leaving behind a trembling silence that tastes of incense and dust, a silence that feels less like peace and more like waiting. The city falls beneath a sun the color of blood. From the high walls, smoke coils upward in slow, graceful columns, twisting into the pale sky. The wind carries the scent of ash and iron, of burnt cedar and river mud. The once bright towers now stand broken and blackened, their shadows stretching across streets littered with fragments of what had been life only hours before. At the heart of the ruin, the king stands upon the remnants of a gate, his armor dulled by dust. The banners behind him hang heavy with soot, their gold threads dimmed. Below, the river runs red, not with myth or miracle, but with reflection. The sunset has caught in the water, turning it into a mirror of flame, so that the city seems to burn twice, once in stone, once in light. The army gathers in the square, their armor streaked with ash, their faces hollow with exhaustion. They do not cheer. Even victory feels too heavy to lift. The general dismounts and kneels before the king, his voice low and steady, carrying through the smoke. It is done. The king nods, though the gesture is slow, almost uncertain. Around him, the air hums with the crackle of fire and the sigh of falling walls. Somewhere in the distance, a single bell tolls, faint, uneven, its sound breaking like a breath caught between sob and silence. He looks to the horizon where the desert begins again, endless and pale. The oracle's words come back to him, soft and persistent as wind, when the sun bows, your name will fade. He closes his eyes for a moment, and in the darkness behind them, he sees not conquest, but reflection, his own shadow cast upon the smoke. The general waits, his head still bowed. The soldiers behind him shift, the weight of their armor echoing like distant thunder. A few civilians stand at the edges of the square, silent figures, neither pleading nor defiant, only watching. Their faces are streaked with dust and tears, their eyes unreadable. They do not curse the victors. They do not thank them. They simply stand, as if bearing witness to something beyond judgment. The king descends the steps slowly, his boots stirring the ash at his feet. He pauses by the river, staring into the red water. His reflection wavers, his crown fractured by ripples, his face split between light and shadow. For a long while, he does not move. Let the fires burn until morning, he says quietly. Then leave them to the wind. The general nods and withdraws. The soldiers disperse like ghosts through the ruins, their armor whispering in the half-dark. The king remains by the river, the sky deepening above him. The flames flicker across the water's surface, and for a fleeting moment, they look like stars sinking beneath the waves. In that silence, he understands, the empire has not conquered another city, it has only devoured its own reflection. As the wind rises, carrying the ashes toward the desert, the bells toll once more, then fade. The sound lingers just long enough to remind the world that victory, too, can sound like morning. The palace blazes with light. Every brazier, every lamp, every candelabrum burns as if to drive the memory of smoke and ruin from the air. The great hall gleams like a sun trapped in stone, marble floors reflecting flame, golden walls alive with shadow. Musicians play from the balconies, their lutes and flutes weaving slow, hypnotic rhythms that pulse through the space like breath. Perfume and incense rise in soft waves, mingling with the scent of wine and roasted fruit. The tables stretch endlessly, covered with silk and silver. Cups spill with crimson wine, platters overflow with honeyed figs, pomegranates split open to reveal their jeweled hearts. Dancers move through the hall, their steps light as dust, their veils glittering like falling stars. Laughter ripples like water from one end of the feast to the other, a sound too perfect, too practiced, as if it were summoned to fill an emptiness rather than spring from joy. At the center, beneath a canopy embroidered with suns, sits the king. His crown gleams, his robe flows like molten gold. Around him, courtiers toast his name, poets praise his victory, the musicians quicken their tempo to match the rising pulse of celebration. Yet his gaze drifts above them, not to the feast, but beyond it, toward the high windows where the night should show its stars. Tonight, there are none. Only dust and smoke veil the heavens. The general sits nearby, silent. His face is calm, but his eyes, too, wander. Neither man speaks, but both sense what the other feels, that the sound of triumph has begun to echo. The laughter, the music, the clinking of cups, all bounce against the walls and return hollow, stripped of warmth. The feast glows, but its light blinds more than it illuminates. The king's hand hovers over his cup. The ruby wine trembles, catching the reflection of the torches until it seems the color of blood. He lifts it slowly, then lowers it again, as though uncertain whom he should be to drink, a ruler or a man. He glances toward the empty seat at the far end of the hall, the place once reserved for the oracle. For years, their presence had been constant, the quiet voice beneath the noise of power. Now the chair stands empty, untouched, its shadow long and still. A dancer passes before him, her bracelets chiming softly. The sound breaks his thought for a moment. He forces a smile, the kind that rulers learn, bright enough to be seen from every corner, warm enough to hide the chill behind it. The musicians play louder. The dancers move faster. The courtiers cheer. The room swells with light and motion until it seems the very walls might burst with the weight of it. Yet, within that brilliance, the king feels the smallest of shadows begin to stir, not a figure, not a whisper, only a feeling, like the dimming of a flame. He closes his eyes and sees, behind his lids, the faint image of the river reflecting red. He hears the oracle's voice once more, when the sun bows, your name will fade. He opens his eyes to the feast, to laughter that rings too sharp, to gold that glows too bright, and for the first time, the light hurts. The night deepens. The music slows. The guests grow heavy with wine, their mirth melting into murmurs. The torches hiss as the incense thickens, curling upward toward a ceiling now lost in haze. The king leans back, his crown casting a small, trembling reflection on the table before him. He looks into it, the distorted gleam of gold, and wonders if glory, too, is only a reflection waiting to fade. Outside, the wind rises over the silent city, carrying with it a single grain of ash that drifts through the open window, lands unseen upon the king's sleeve, and disappears into the light. Night returns with its quiet honesty, soft as silk drawn across the palace. The last embers of the feast have dimmed, the laughter and music have faded into distant echoes that drift down the empty corridors like ghosts of joy. The king walks alone now, through the royal gardens, beneath a moon pale as polished bone. The fountains still run, though slower, their streams catching the moonlight in silver threads. Cypress trees rise dark and tall, their shadows long and thin across the marble paths. The scent of night-blooming flowers lingers in the air, jasmine and myrrh, sweet and heavy, yet even their fragrance feels weary, as though the earth itself has grown tired of glory. The king moves with slow, deliberate steps. The sound of his sandals against stone is steady but subdued. He passes the pools where the stars shimmer on the surface of still water, and for a moment, he imagines the reflections are his people, countless, bright and silent. He reaches down, touches the water's skin, and the stars ripple, breaking apart. He whispers to himself, will my name outlive the stone? The words seem to hang in the air, unanswered. The garden offers only the sound of the wind through the trees and the faint drip of water. From behind him, footsteps approach, soft, measured. The general appears from the shadows, helmet under one arm, the other hand resting on the hilt of his sword more out of habit than need. He bows slightly, his voice low. The people are restless, my king. The fields grow thin. The builders grow weary. They speak of rest. The king nods, not in anger, but in thought. Rest, he repeats, his gaze still on the pool. They have built a world that outshines their fathers. What more could they ask? The general hesitates before answering. They ask for less. The words fall gently, but they strike deep. The king looks up, the moonlight glinting on the gold of his robe. Less, he murmurs. And what of us? Can we ask for less when the sun itself expects our worship? The general does not answer. His silence is the truest form of loyalty, understanding without agreement. The king looks away again, his reflection rippling beneath the moonlight. Then, faintly, as if carried by the wind or memory itself, comes a whisper. It is not the general's voice. It is older, softer, echoing from some unseen place within the garden walls. The sun must bow before it rises again. The king freezes. The night seems to draw closer around him, the air thickening with stillness. He looks toward the fountains, but no one is there. Only the slow, silver water and the drifting scent of flowers. The general looks at him with quiet concern. My king. The king exhales, shaking his head. Nothing, he says. Only the wind. But he knows it is not the wind. The words have weight, as prophecy always does. He feels them settle into the space between his ribs, heavy and unmovable. The two men stand for a long time in silence, surrounded by the music of water and leaves. The moon hangs above them, round and watchful, casting its pale light over stone and skin alike. In that stillness, the king feels the shape of doubt for the first time, not sharp, but slow, like a shadow stretching across the ground. It does not frighten him, not yet. It simply reminds him that even the brightest crown casts darkness somewhere behind it. He turns away from the pool, his reflection breaking once more into ripples, and walks toward the dim light of the palace doors. The general follows, a pace behind. The fountains continue their quiet song. The moon watches, silent and knowing. The night breaks not with noise, but with a trembling, a deep, slow pulse that seems to rise from the very bones of the earth. The air grows heavy, the wind twisting through the streets like a living thing. Clouds gather above the city, thick and bruised with storm, and a single crack of thunder splits the silence in two. From the towers to the temples, lamps flicker and fail. The empire holds its breath. The king stands on the balcony of his high palace, the same place where he once greeted the dawn. But now there is no dawn, only a horizon smeared with ash and lightning. Below him, the city that once gleamed with order now trembles with confusion. The streets ripple with shadow and flame, banners torn loose from their poles drift upward before the wind consumes them. Far off, the great statues of the gods begin to crumble. Their marble faces crack like old parchment, their eyes breaking into dust that the storm carries away. Rain begins to fall, slow at first, then harder, not cleansing, but mournful. It strikes the gold tiles of the palace roofs and runs down the carved walls like tears. Inside, the halls are filled with echoes, the faint roll of drums, the distant cry of something collapsing, the flutter of curtains in a breathless wind. Servants flee, the guards no longer form their ranks. The empire's rhythm, once perfect and divine, stumbles and fades like the last beat of a dying heart. The king steps forward to the edge of the balcony, his robes whipping around him, heavy with rain. Lightning flashes, and for an instant his reflection appears in the storm clouds above, vast, crowned in light, then vanishes as thunder follows. He looks down at the city, at the fires and the flood, and feels neither rage nor fear, only the slow, cold clarity that comes at the end of knowing. His crown loosens. It was not torn away by force, nor struck from his head, it simply slips, tilts, and falls. It strikes the marble once, rings softly, and rolls into the darkness. The sound is small, but it carries, a single note that seems to echo across time. The king does not reach for it. He stands unmoving, watching as lightning fractures the sky. For a moment, the storm pauses, as if listening. Then the wind shifts, sweeping through the open halls, carrying the ashes of banners and the scent of rain-soaked stone. Somewhere in the distance, the general calls his name, but his voice is lost in the thunder. The king does not turn. He closes his eyes, and in that darkness, he sees it all as it truly is, the empire of dust, the river turned red, the city rising and falling like breath. The oracle's voice returns one last time, soft as memory. When the sun bows, your name will fade. He exhales. The wind catches the sound and carries it away. The rain falls harder now, washing the gold from the walls, the smoke from the sky. The drums, once proud, falter and fade. And there, on the balcony above the trembling city, the king stands motionless, no longer ruler, no longer symbol, only a man standing in the rain, as his empire finally bows to silence. Centuries pass, and the desert returns to claim its own. What once shimmered with gold and fire now lies beneath a soft blanket of silence. The wind has become the only voice that moves through the empire, whispering through broken arches, sighing down empty corridors, threading itself through the ribs of ruined halls. The great city is no more, its towers sleep beneath the dunes, its streets swallowed by sand. In the stillness, sunlight filters through cracks in fallen stone, scattering beams across carvings whose meanings no one remembers. The gods, once fierce and radiant, have faded into ghostly outlines. Their faces, worn by centuries of dust and wind, stare upward toward the sky that outlived them. The marble floors are veined with sand, the pools that once mirrored the heavens hold only windblown leaves. Now and then, travelers cross this place. Wanderers and nomads with camels and water skins, led by the pull of horizon more than destination. They pass through the ruins in reverent silence, their voices low, their footsteps soft, as though they have entered a temple made of air. Some pause to touch the stone, tracing the faint grooves of forgotten inscriptions. They ask, who built this, but no one among them can answer. The names are gone, carried away grain by grain with the wind. Where the Temple of Stars once stood, there is only a mound of sand and the faint curve of its foundation, barely visible beneath the dunes. At night, when the wind stills, the stars gather above it in the same pattern carved long ago into its ceiling. It is said that if one listens closely, a single lamp still flickers below, a ghost of light that refuses to die, burning in silence for a god long forgotten. The desert does not mourn. It does not celebrate. It simply endures, patient, eternal. The same wind that once carried the banners of kings now drifts through hollow windows and touches nothing living. Yet, in its whisper, there is no cruelty. Only peace. The empire's memory has become part of the earth itself. The dust that clings to the traveler's clothes was once the marble of palaces. The sand beneath their feet was once the brick of temples. Everything that was built to defy time has joined it instead, becoming its gentlest companion. As the sun lowers, the ruins glow, not with fire, but with a quiet kind of grace. The carvings, faint and eroded, catch the last light and seem to breathe once more. For a moment, it is as if the stones themselves remember what they were: music, prayer, and life. Then the wind rises again, soft but sure, sweeping across the dunes and smoothing their edges. The day folds into twilight, the horizon turns to silver, and all sound fades but the sigh of sand. There is no tragedy here now, only acceptance. The desert holds what it was given, not as a grave, but as a cradle. The empire sleeps, and in that sleep, it has found what it never sought in life: peace. In a quiet chamber far from the desert winds, the sound of a quill moves gently across parchment, a soft, steady rhythm like a heartbeat remembered. The room is small and lined with scrolls, their edges frayed and dusted with age. A single lamp burns beside the writer, its flame swaying slightly each time he breathes. The air smells of ink and parchment, of old secrets and patience. Outside, night has fallen, but within these walls, time drifts differently, slower, kinder, circular. The chronicler bends close to his work. Before him lies a fragment of stone, worn and cracked, its surface carved with the remnants of a language long gone. The letters are faint, their edges softened by centuries of sand and wind. He runs his fingers over them as though tracing the pulse of a sleeping world. Each mark tells a story that only silence can finish. They thought they built for eternity, he murmurs, but eternity builds through them. His voice is gentle, not sorrowful, a tone of reverence more than pity. He dips his quill again, the ink glistening in the lamplight, and copies the fading lines onto fresh parchment. Some words are unreadable, he fills the gaps with guesses, with faith. The king's name appears midway through the text, broken, half erased, the letters blurred by time. Yet as the lamplight shifts, the faintest glimmer runs through them, as if the stone itself remembers the sound of that name being spoken aloud. The chronicler pauses, listening to the quiet hum of the oil flame. Perhaps, he whispers, it is not kings who endure, but memory itself. Perhaps memory is the only God we have ever truly known. He writes slower now, each word deliberate. His shadow sways across the wall, long and soft, blending with those of countless scribes who came before him. Outside, the night wind sighs against the window, carrying the scent of dust, a reminder that even the quietest breath can belong to history. He wonders what will become of his own words, whether someone centuries from now will find them and read his thoughts as faint traces of light on the edge of forgetting. He smiles at the thought. If memory is divine, he thinks, then all who remember are its priests. When he finishes the last line, he sits back and watches the ink dry. The lamp flickers, casting warm light over his work, over the parchment, the stone, the tools of his devotion. The room feels full, though he is alone, as if the air itself has drawn close to listen. He blows gently on the flame until it steadies, then closes his eyes. The faint scratch of the quill fades, replaced by silence deep enough to hold centuries. Outside, the stars have returned, countless, distant, eternal, the same that once shone over the empire now buried beneath the sand. And beneath their gaze, the chronicler's lamp continues to glow, small but unwavering, as if keeping vigil for all that once was. You lie in bed now, the room dim and still, the soft breath of night moving against your window. The world outside hums with the same quiet wind that once drifted through ancient arches, across golden courtyards, and over the sleeping dunes of forgotten empires. That wind has no age, it has touched banners and candles, temples and tombs, and now it brushes your skin, as gentle as memory itself. The voice of history has grown faint, almost a lullaby. The drums of conquest have long fallen silent, the crowns have tarnished into dust, and even the marble dreams of kings have softened into the earth. What remains is the rhythm, the endless rise and fall of human longing, the heartbeat that echoes from stone to sand to sky. Every triumph fades into stillness, every monument becomes a whisper. Yet, in that surrender, there is a kind of peace. The narrator's voice lowers, slower now, each word wrapped in warmth. You lie in bed now, centuries away, yet the same wind that carried their banners still moves through the world. You can almost feel it, that breath of time, passing gently through all things, weaving you into the same fabric as those who built and dreamed and vanished. The empires that sought to outshine the sun have all gone to sleep beneath the same stars that now rest above your roof. Their stories have ended, yet the light remains, the quiet, patient light that has seen everything and forgotten nothing. The sound of distant bells drifts through the air, faint and far, fading like the last notes of a memory. The wind sighs once more, then stills. And so, the narrator whispers, as the dust settles beneath the stars, we remember, not the kings who rose, but the light that outlived them. Silence follows, deep, soft, eternal, the kind of silence that holds the whole world in its arms. And beneath that silence, sleep comes, gentle and golden, like dawn waiting just beyond the horizon.